platforms. And now to the topic that we have at that is menace of vandalism in Nigeria. You see, whenever Nigerians want to point to a problem in the country, they are always pointing fingers at probably the federal government, state government, if you are lucky. Some other lights don't like even point to the local government areas. But when we have issues of the citizens themselves destroying things that were done by the federal government to help Nigerians. Recently in the Federal Capital Territory, we had issues of manhole covers being taken away. Most of our grid collapse that happened last year, most of them were attributed to vandalism. So this is something that we truly need to talk about. I'll be starting with Emmanuel Nikole. When it comes to the issue of vandalism in Nigeria, I know some people would point to the fact that it is still the federal government's fault because it's because the citizens are hungry and that is why they are looking for other means of livelihood. But what are your thoughts on issues of vandalism? Is it still right for us to blame the government when it's the citizens themselves that is destroying what the government has done?
For me, I'll look at two angles to it. Even for every society to grow, there's what we call good leadership, and then we have good followership. And in trying to look at situations, to look at the roles each of these groups will play, our leaders on their own parts, places that are of use like that should have certain level of security. Because in Nigeria, at different levels, we have different security agencies manning and handling different things. At the same time, some of us have consistently advocated for a system that works for all Nigerians, no matter the name we call the system of government, and that is community policing. In a system where communities police their own environment, not the community policing we have been hearing, but in a situation where communities among themselves form themselves, report intel, communicate intels within themselves, and report issues that of criminal issues happening within the society, and equally even arrest these criminals and hand them over to the authorities required. But at the same time, some of these persons, when you arrest them and hand over to these law enforcement officers, you still see them in the next day roaming around. It means they have been freed. But such communities most time expect that these persons will be prosecuted and being brought to book. But when you consistently, they arrest these persons, give to you, and you free them, then it goes back to the leadership, failure of leadership. And then I'll give example. We organized the Youth and Policing Summit in Northeast, and we have representatives from different states, and we're privileged to have even a judge in our midst. And he actually spoke to us and informed that in Yobe, for example, when the issue of Boko Haram started earlier, a lot of persons, the committee went and reported to different law enforcement officers of the presence of their own family members being part of the Boko Haram and the rest. They came and arrested those persons, and the following day, these persons were freed. And as they were freeing them, they were also privy to the information of who actually reported them. And what happened next? It was the police picking up dead bodies on every street because they knew who reported them and they went back. So you start looking at the protection of whistleblowers and all that in communities. So without the community, there won't be any need for any police. And for the policing agencies to succeed, there's also need for police-community partnership, which has not been so. Anybody in the country knows the situation currently. Citizens do not trust law enforcement officers because of the way and manner they have treated citizens over some time now. So there's need for the security agencies to also learn to build the trust between them and citizens. At the same time, encourage situations where communities can police themselves and work with such communities. If they can do that to an extent, the community also learn that they have a role in policing. And then law enforcement officers too can be able to complement that role as expected. With that, we'll be able to have a better system that works, and then a system that if people vandalize things and all that, they can also be brought to book.
Thank you so much for that. Not to Yinka Ogunsoya, when it comes to issues of vandalism in Nigeria, would you say it's hunger in the land? Would you say it's probably greed from the people, or perhaps incompetence of the government?
again. Vandalism is a crime, point blank. Let's not sugarcoat it. There's no excuse. There's no reason to do it. People do it because they're trying to take a shortcut. But there's some areas where we can fix things and make things work for everybody. Yes, there's hunger in the land. There's lack of production of food materials and stuff like that. That's fine. But for you to go and take a manhole cover that can kill multiple people knowingly to sell it to make money, that does not justify you just trying to find food. That means you just don't have humane thinking of other people in your heart, because you know you're endangering life. And for somebody to know that they're still in those manhole covers and accepting them to melt them down to make another product, that means they don't really care about the growth and welfare of the country as well. That's the way I see it. So what do? We need a massive shift in thinking, national pride, collective ownership. This is our role. This is our manhole. Everybody, like the last speaker spoke, it's got to a point that people are so not interested in collective activities anymore that people don't really take pride in when they see somebody committing vandalism and trying to stop them or trying to report them. So we have to go back to that. And one of the tactics we can use here is community policing. When you say community policing, it's not something that's going to happen overnight, because we tend to sensationalize things in our country. We love to snap our fingers and want to fix tomorrow. It's not going to work tomorrow. You have to go back to how are these police officers trained. I don't know if you remember the scandal at the police college about a few years ago. If you're training people in that horrendous condition and you're giving them live ammunition to go out there, I think you're not creating community policing officers. You're creating harsh individuals that just went through hazing and harassment. Now they're going to victimize people on the street. So every action, is going to result to some kind of response. So we need to reorientate our people. We need to also retrain our officers. They're actually working for the people. Community police, you want police officers who are familiar with the terrain, the areas where they're operating, so that people can have confidence in them, be able to tell them when they see something that's going wrong. And we're going to separate that from people actually just calling police on their neighbors because they don't like them. So there's so many intricacies that's involved in vandalism. The federal government does have its own aspect, which is actually minimal in this situation. Because after providing this infrastructure that we asked for, that we really want, do you want to commit a whole bunch of money again to security? I've not seen in any country I've visited police monitoring manholes in the ground or the rail guards on the road. People just don't take it because they know it's ours. It's a collective property. It benefits everybody. It will endanger life. Do you give an excuse of hunger when somebody knowingly go to the rail line and take some metal, knowing the next train is coming with hundreds of people and they might be killed? That's criminal. But we have to have a massive campaign, just like we did with I, so that people can know there's consequences for this action, and also it has to be accompanied by economic relief, security relief. People have to go back to farming. People have to be able to go back on their business. Peace of mind. That's why I said security is being pushed to the side to some extent, but is the number one catalyst for stabilizing the country and the economic well-being of the people.
Thank you so much for that. And now very quickly to Manuel, because we are fast running out of time. But let me just say we've even run out of time. When it comes to issues of getting Nigerians to actually take ownership of some of these public infrastructures that we have that is continually being vandalized, do you think it's still possible in Nigeria that we have people who are far removed remove from activities of governor, because we have in Nigeria people generating their own electricity for their own water, transportation, and almost a lot of things that they would normally rely on government to provide for them. So do you think we might still get to that point in Nigeria where everyone would look at government properties and infrastructures as their own?
It is actually my prayer and hope that we get to that level. And for some of us, we hope and we're working towards that Nigeria that we all value, we all respect, and we all believe in. That is why when a lot of persons are thinking about Japan and the rest, some of us are not thinking about that because we are still believing that we can get that country we need. But as we have all agreed earlier, there's need for, first of all, they're saying that an unexamined life is not worth living. We have to look internally and see what is it that we are not doing well. A lot of persons have gotten to the level that they're thinking just about what they can get, what they can benefit, and all that. But I think developing countries are thinking about what can I add, what can I do to make my country better. For some of us, that is our thought. And we all have a role to play in reorientating ourselves on the tenets of a good country. We have not been loyal to our countries. Even people that we have in government are loyal to their pockets and loyal to what they get. But we, at our own level, maybe from the level of civil society, I can at the same time form organized programs that talk about how we can better our country. Talk about my people, maybe the young persons, how they can also contribute, how their personal interests can also lead national democracy, how even the government themselves, those things that we feel they are not doing right, we try to reach out to them and offer our own opinions and see how that can be improved in such a way that it benefits the country and citizens. These are issues that can help. At the same time, even among every sectors, there are certain persons that will feel and know that they are doing better and they have the interests of Nigeria at heart. We are hoping that our leaders also appoint such persons to head those sectors. If we have our leadership right, I believe to an extent, those persons they appoint, even if it's 40%, get them right, to a large extent, it will go a long way in ensuring that we have respect for our country. At the same time, we also should have a system. There's need to have a system that works, a system that holds people accountable. Just like the other speaker spoke earlier. Stealing or vandalizing government property is not an excuse. Even if the government of the day is failing, even if the government of the day does not belong to the same political party with you and all that, it's not an excuse because that property does not recognize party. It's for everybody and it should be treated as such because the money is raised and was used to actually develop those places was not based on party. It was funds, our own general funds that was used for such things. So we Nigerians, I believe we should get tired. The problem is we are not yet tired because a lot of persons are willing. And the sad reality is the more persons entering into political parties now for positions, they are not thinking about the good of Nigeria. They are thinking just about themselves. So there should be a system to check those excesses. Even if you are a political appointee and you fail to reach or do this type of things, or you are just there to embezzle money, there should be a system that purges such persons, a system that can punish such persons and ensure that everybody, if you enter any political position, you are accountable. When the system is like that, it will also encourage citizens on their own that it's not just about eating the money. It's not about wishing to be bad. It's not about just wishing to do bad activities because those in government are doing the same. So let us follow suit. No. If there are system that accounts or purges all this, then everybody will check him or herself because you know very well if I do this, I'll get this punishment. But in Nigeria, the system has not.
Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us. But sadly run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today on Firecrackers. It has really been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us.